Pakistan's decades-old Balochistan insurgency is entering another dangerous phase. Days after Baloch separatist group marked August 11 as their Independence Day, the Baloch Liberation Army claimed a series of attacks against Pakistani security forces, including a claim that 32 soldiers were killed this month. Pakistan has now responded with fresh airstrikes in Balochistan. But amid this escalating cycle of insurgency and military retaliation, it is ordinary Baloch civilians who are increasingly being caught in the crossfire. For Baloch activists, the latest violence is not an isolated security episode, but the latest chapter in a decades-old struggle over political rights, resources, and identity. Our special report.
Balochistan is once again at the center of a dangerous escalation. Pakistan has conducted fresh airstrikes in the province after the Baloch Liberation Army claimed attacks against Pakistani security forces. Reports citing intelligence sources say strikes in areas including Surab and Gwadar resulted in civilian deaths, including women and children. According to reports, at least 20 civilians were killed and a dozen others were injured. The strikes came after the Baloch Liberation Army, an insurgent group, claimed that its attacks this month had killed 32 Pakistani soldiers.
Pakistani military has targeted civilian population in Surab district, where they conducted airstrike and killed around 20 plus people, including children, women, elderly, and over 16 people are badly wounded. Now, the attacks, which obviously carried out by the Baloch Liberation Army and other Baloch armed groups, as a response to them targeting civilians, is a direct violation of international laws, which obviously clearly mention that the women, children, non-combatant civilians, elderly people should not be targeted even in an active war zone.
But behind today's violence lies a much older political conflict. Balochistan is Pakistan's largest province and is rich in minerals, gas and other resources, yet it remains Pakistan's poorest province. For many Baloch nationalists, repeated political grievances and what they describe as years of state repression have left peaceful avenues increasingly closed. And within this movement, some groups have turned to armed resistance, arguing that they are left with no other option to challenge Pakistani control. The latest escalation came just days after August 11, a date Baloch nationalist groups mark as their Independence Day. The date goes back to the history of the Khanate of Kalat and the disputed circumstances surrounding its accession to Pakistan in 1948. For Baloch nationalists, August 11 represents a political identity they believe was taken away. For Islamabad, Balochistan has always been an integral part of Pakistan, but nearly 8 decades later, the dispute remains unresolved. And the gap between political demands and the state's response has continued to fuel resistance.
What Pakistani state is doing is targeting Baloch civilian populations, targeting villages, targeting towns, targeting areas indiscriminately with airstrike, killing dozens of people in single attack, non-combatant civilians from Surab to Khuzdar to Kalat to Noshki to Gwadar to Turbat, any part of Balochistan. If an independent journalist, if an independent media organization, if the human rights organization, they visit, they will see that these claims, which are always brought up by the Pakistani state, their media, that the Baloch armed forces have targeted civilians, are fabricated. 99.9% are lies.
For the Baloch population, the conflict is no longer simply about competing political narratives. It is about security, livelihoods, disappearances, displacement and the fear of violence becoming a part of everyday life. And with every new operation, activists warn that anger and alienation could deepen further. For decades, Balochistan's political grievances have remained unresolved. And as demands for rights, representation and control over the province's resources continue to collide with Islamabad's security-first approach, a section of the Baloch movement has increasingly turned towards armed resistance. The latest airstrikes and the BLA's attacks show that the conflict is entering yet another dangerous phase, but with every escalation, it is the Baloch civilian who risks paying the highest price. The question now is not only whether Pakistan can contain the insurgency, but whether it can address the grievances that continue to fuel it.